Hello, my name is Jon Sermon. I'm offering short videos of encouragement most days at the moment. Apologies if you missed the fact that there wasn't one yesterday. And I'm doing this because of the lockdown situation, even with the easing that's due to come in a few days now, and the pressure it puts us all under, helping everyone, I hope, to realise that there's a bigger picture than our immediate problems, and we are in God's hands. So I want to encourage you. At the moment, our family situation is quite tough, and it's not as if I'm pretending that everything's fine, because it isn't. Just to put you in the picture, my mum died between 2.5 and 3 years ago, and it does take time to come to terms with that. But then my dad died at the beginning of the lockdown. We weren't able to have a proper funeral. We still don't know when we might be doing a memorial service. And now my wife's father is seriously ill in hospital. And so the pressures on us as a family are considerable. Now, I'm not saying that to try and encourage your sympathy or anything like that, but just being realistic that not everything goes well all the time. And if you're a Christian, people sometimes assume that somehow Christians are immune from the suffering other people face. It couldn't be further from the truth. And the reality is, Jesus never ever promised that we would be immune from it. He didn't offer us easy answers in any way. But what he did offer us was a promise. He said to his followers, I'm going to be with God the Father. I'm going back to where I came from, to heaven, he meant. He said, and I'm going to prepare a place for you. We also had the sad news of the death of a church member this morning. And when we know that someone has lived their life committed to Jesus Christ, relying on him alone for their place in eternity, we can know that they have in effect gone home. And indeed, with my wife's father, the reality for him is he is looking forward to going home, and if it turns out to be tonight or very soon, of course we'll be sad to lose his company. Of course we'll be sorry if his death includes any kind of suffering. But he knows, and we know, that it will be a homecoming in a sense, because Jesus has gone ahead to prepare a place for him. Now, what about if your life up until now has not been one of following Jesus Christ, not been one of putting your faith in him? What if even you were at the end of your life, or very close to it, and you had never trusted in Jesus? Now, this is really quite an important point, because again, I go back in my memory to an earlier bereavement when my grandfather died. And I was a teenager at the time, and I was a new Christian. And when it happened, and when my mum and my grandmother, they described how he had discharged himself from hospital against medical advice, because he knew he was dying, he wanted to die at home. He'd gone home, they'd sat up with him, and he spent that night in prayer, calling on the Lord. Yet up till that point, he had not acknowledged Jesus Christ at all. And then he died in the early hours of the morning. Now, Jesus told a story to illustrate the truth, in which he said there was a vineyard owner who would go out and hire workers for the day, because that's how it worked in those days. The labourers would hang around in the marketplace hoping someone would hire them and pay them a day's wages. And he gathered a group of workers in the morning and took them to work in his vineyard and promised to pay them the normal day rate. At lunchtime he got some more because there were some who hadn't been hired that day, and he found them and sent them to join the others working in his vineyard. And then twice more, so that 10 to 6 or whatever it might have been, a few more joined the ones who'd worked all through the day or half the day. And yet the vineyard owner paid them all a full day's wage. Now, quite apart from a story about someone who was unusually generous as an employer, who knew that those workers needed the day's wage to feed their families and so on, quite apart from that, the story was intended to illustrate a spiritual significant point. That those who come to faith in Jesus Christ early in life, those who come in middle age, those who come right towards the end, they all receive what he promised, that he goes to prepare a place. And my grandfather was one of the 10 to 6ers. Whatever stage you're at, this can be true for you too. I know it's difficult to find a church that's open at the moment, but you can find us online or on websites, or find phone directories and church ministers, or someone you know who's a Christian. You can ask people to help you in prayer to accept the offer of Jesus that makes a difference despite our circumstances in this life, and gives us the assurance of a place when we come home with Jesus. God bless you.